Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Tyler Rugge, and for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the topic of owning wild-caught animals as pets. And keep in mind, throughout this video, I'm only going to be referring to wild animals as in pretty much everything besides mammals, because owning wild mammals like, lions, tigers, wolves, anything like that, is like a whole nother monster that could be a whole nother video. So in today's video, I'm mainly just going to be talking about reptiles and fish and things like that. The reason why I'm making this video is because some people were upset in my video about treating my sunbeam snake that I mentioned that sunbeam snakes are usually caught from the wild. So I wanted to talk about owning wild-caught animals and what situations it's good, what situations it's bad, and the different things that goes into owning a wild-caught animal. So yeah, I'm joined here today with my snake, Athena. She's a Colombian red-tailed boa. I don't know where her face is. But yeah, she's not wild caught. She is captive bred, but I just haven't filmed with her in a while and you guys haven't seen her. So I figured I would do a video with her around my neck. There she is. Hi, Athena. I'll start off with why different animals are wild caught and also what animals are wild caught usually. In the reptile trade, usually the reptiles that are being wild caught are ones that don't breed in captivity very well or at all. So, for example, hermit crabs, always wild caught 99% of the time because they do not breed in captivity. So at a pet store, at an expo, if they're ever selling hermit crabs, they're most likely caught from the wild, like 99% of the time. A good majority of the time, crocodile skinks are wild caught because they are difficult to breed in captivity. They require very special conditions. And not only that, but they only produce one egg every like 70 days. So it just isn't practical to breed them. It's not really worth it to breeders to breed them. So crocodile skinks, wild caught a lot of the time. Different types of blue tongue skinks are sometimes wild caught too, as well as a lot of different types of snakes. An example being the sunbeam snake that I got. They are very difficult to get them to breed in captivity. Therefore, they are usually just wild caught. A fun little fact that a lot of you guys probably aren't aware of is that a lot of the saltwater fish that you can get at the pet store are wild caught. Only time a fish is captive bred is if it's labeled captive bred. Otherwise, it's usually wild caught because a lot of saltwater fish don't breed in captivity. The only ones that really breed in captivity are like the cheaper ones like clownfish and gobies and different things like that. But a lot of the snails and a lot of tangs and a lot of the bigger fish, lionfish, a lot of them are caught from the ocean and imported and then sold at pet stores. So if you don't want to get an animal that's caught from the wild, you want to clarify whenever you go to buy something, is this captive bred or is this wild caught? And even if you do try to clarify with people, some people will lie and say that they're captive bred even if they are wild caught because getting wild caught animals has a negative stigma to it. Now that we've covered what is commonly wild caught in the pet trade, now I'm going to go over why it's bad or harmful to own wild caught animals and also why it could be good. The bad in owning wild caught animals, a lot of people, the first thing they go to is that, oh, it's cruel to take it out of the wild because it has the whole world to roam around in, and then you're gonna put it in a little container and it doesn't have as much space and it misses the wild. And with that, really, you don't know if the animal misses the wild. In my opinion, snakes and different lizards, a lot of them, in my opinion, don't really know the difference. For example, my sunbeam snake, in the wild, they live underground and they just sit there in one spot and they wait for something to run by and then it comes out and grabs it and eats it and then it goes back and hides again. A lot of animals, and again, I'm talking reptiles mainly, in the wild, they aren't just roaming around all the time. A lot of different types of snakes and things are usually just going to stay put in one spot where they feel safe all the time, and the only time they leave is to hunt for their food. In captivity, if you're providing them a large enough enclosure and you make it so they feel secure as possible within that enclosure, I honestly don't think it's quite cruel, and I don't think they're gonna know the difference between being in a enclosure where they feel secure and being in the wild. You know what I'm saying? And if anything, owning animals and keeping them in captivity is actually increasing their lifespan. And if anything, it's probably less stressful for them to be in captivity than in the wild. However, if you think it's cruel to take animals out of the wild or not is kind of opinion based, because we really don't know what animals think. But the thing that for sure is bad about taking animals out of the wild and bringing them into captivity is that it messes with the ecosystem. It messes with the amount of animals that are in the wild. Every animal we own as pets today at some point were wild caught, and then they were bred in captivity. So that's how it started. So for the most part, I will say I wouldn't recommend getting an animal that is wild caught though, because they aren't really used to being handled by people. But if you do happen to get an animal that is wild caught, you just want to make sure to get it checked by a vet, because a lot of wild caught animals will suddenly die if people don't get them checked, because they have different diseases or parasites within them that you can't see from the outside. There are some situations where animals are wild caught, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually good for the ecosystem. And an example of that are the tegus that are being wild caught from Florida. There was a breeding project in Florida where a breeder just let a bunch of tegus go into the wild, so they are not native to Florida's ecosystem. And these tegus just went loose and they thrive in Florida's climate. They reproduced, and now they're actually invasive in Florida. And people are killing the tegus, but there are also people who are capturing the tegus and then selling them for the pet trade, which you could argue on the side that, oh, it's cruel because the tegus are used to being in the wild. Or you could say, oh, well, it's good that we're capturing them because they're invasive and people are actually killing them anyways. You know what I'm saying? Wild-caught animals like that will require more work to get them to be used to handling. But it just goes to show that there are good and bad to owning wild-caught animals. Now, the reason why I got my Sunbeam snake, obviously, yes, I did want it. It's a cool snake. Also, I just wanted to learn more about the Sunbeam snake, and I'm kind of using it for education, making videos on the internet, which sounds like a poor excuse to some people, I think, to get a wild-caught animal to make videos about it, because you say, oh, well, you could make videos about it anyways. But the thing is, there isn't a whole lot of information online about Sunbeam snakes, and I wanted to be able to own one for myself and learn about them hands-on, actually having one and taking care of it myself, and then being able to teach you guys about the Sunbeam snake with my own experience. I don't like to talk about animals that I've never owned before, because to me it doesn't make sense to just spew out everything I'm reading on a care sheet to you guys in a video, because you guys can look up the care sheet yourself. But it's different if I'm giving you guys input from my own actual experience. And aside from that, I also mentioned that I wanted to try and possibly breed the Sunbeam snakes in captivity so that there are more sunbeams in captivity that are captive bred as opposed to being wild caught. Now, the thing with this is they are difficult to breed in captivity. I am not like some professional breeder who knows what they're doing. So that's why I say maybe I would want to try breeding them. Again, I just need to own it for a while, get used to taking care of it and what it needs and making sure it's healthy. And then once I learn more about that, and maybe more about breeding reptiles, maybe eventually I could get into trying to breed sunbeam snakes in captivity, as well as other animals that are harder or take longer to breed in captivity, so that less can be wild caught in the pet trade. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's my whole thing about the sunbeam snake being wild caught. So yeah, I don't know if this video really made any sense, but I just wanted to discuss the topic of owning wild caught animals and kind of show you guys, because I think a lot of you guys, when you saw that my sunbeam snake was probably wild caught, when I mentioned that, you probably didn't think that, hey, like there's a lot of animals being sold in the pet trade that are wild caught and you just don't know it. For example, like I said, hermit crabs, the crocodile skinks, saltwater fish in general, and there are like just tons of animals that are wild caught and sold in the pet trade. And you wouldn't know it unless you went out of your way to specifically ask about it. And there are also plenty of other people who own wild caught animals. I just am open with you guys about saying, hey, this was wild caught. Like, I am not afraid to admit it. I just want to use it to educate you guys and even educate you guys about owning animals that are wild caught. So whether you're for or against it or want to support it or not is kind of up to you. In my opinion, would I get a wild caught animal for a pet for an average person? No. If I was just an average person getting a sunbeam snake as a pet, I would say that's probably not a good idea, just because, you know, wild caught animals don't really make good pets. They're not good for handling. Sunbeam snakes specifically are usually hiding all the time, so you don't even get to see much of them. I would say it's okay to get it if you're going to use it for education or for breeding purposes, and you know, use it for a good purpose, not just keeping it as a pet, if that makes sense. But if you're just gonna get it as a pet, then I would say to not get a wild caught animal. Where are you going? So yeah, feel free to leave me your opinion down below about this. I'm not necessarily saying I'm right. 100%, it is just my opinion. If you guys like this video, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I post videos every week. Also, don't forget to check out my social media. The links to those will be in the description below, and I'll see you guys in my next video, and say goodbye to Athena. Athena says, I want to go back in my enclosure. Say bye to Athena. Bye.